Okay, I think our special guest is here, so I'm going to go ahead and go through my introduction. There's a very good reason that our next guest has earned a spot in the Monster Movie Hall of Fame. He made his first appearance as our favorite Prince of Hell in the 1987 classic Clive Barker film Hellraiser. He's portrayed Pinhead in 8 different films, featuring the leader of the terrifying and sadistic Cenobites. His regal and commanding performances have placed him in the pantheon of iconic genre actors such as Karloff, Lugosi, Price, Lee, and Cushing. It's a genuine honor for me to introduce the great Doug Bradley to the Sinister Creature Con panel. We were just talking.
Everything he just said about Karloff and Lugosi and Lee and Cushing is bullshit. Not fit to tie shoelaces, quite frankly.
I don't know. I think there are a lot of people that would beg to differ with you on that. I was just talking to the people before you came in about how nice it was this year, the way the panels lined up, because we had David Howard Thornton, who's very much a modern icon. And we're going the next panel.
Now you go to the old farts.
Doug
Is this what you're saying?
Well, I wasn't going to use the term old fart, but I was going to say an iconic horror figure from the past. So let's talk about that past for a few minutes. Everybody knows, I think, at this point, and I don't mean to retread familiar ground, but there may be some people that don't realize this, that you and Clive Barker were actually close friends since high school. You went to Quarry Bank High in Liverpool together. Is that actually where John Lennon had gone to school too, or am I mistaken about that?
No, you're absolutely right. A decade before Clive and I were at Quarry Bank, but there is a link, and that link is William Pobjoy, who was the head teacher of Quarry when it was Quarry Bank High School for boys in the 1950s when John was there. And I think Mr. Pobjoy recognized that in Lennon he had a pupil of distinct but mercurial talents, who was brilliant at English and brilliant at art and couldn't give a flying fuck about anything else. You know, and you can see his old school reports signed by William Pobjoy that effectively say that.
Wow.
But I think to his credit, Pobjoy recognized that this was not a talent to try and beat into shape. This was let it have its head. So when Lennon approached him for permission to form a skiffle band in the school, skiffle, if you're not familiar, skiffle was a kind of early form of punk rock and roll. And it was, T-chest bass, because you couldn't afford to buy an actual bass guitar, and washboard, because you couldn't afford a set of drums, and so forth. And Mr. Pobjoy gave him permission.
Oh, wow.
And John named his band in honor of the school. And you probably will be familiar with the Quarrymen,
yeah,
which was the first iteration of the Beatles, and was the band that was playing at the Garden Fete at Woolton Church Hall when another of the members of the Quarrymen said to his friend, "You should come and see my mate's band. I think you and he might get on together." And of course his name was Paul McCartney. And because McCartney knew all the chords to 20 Flight Rock, Lennon decided he reportedly thought, this guy will be trouble, but I need him in the band. So I think Mr. Pobjoy recognized in Clive basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Clive was brilliant at English, brilliant at art. Didn't give a fuck about anything else. Was not interested, and his school reports reflect the same thing. And I think Mr. Pobjoy did the same thing. Thought, you know, here is an extraordinary individual, and I can't contain him, let him have his head. So Clive was writing, starring, directing, and hand-drawing his own posters for his plays at Quarry. And I saw a couple of those. In 1969, I got cast in the school play and was told to report for rehearsals, which I duly did. And that was the day that changed my life, because I got to meet my fellow cast members, which included this fellow by the name of Clive Barker. And, you know, after school and university, we spent the whole of the 70s working in experimental theatre together, doing our own stuff. Clive was the engine room, but there was a whole group that had constellated around him, and we were all creatively involved in what we were doing. So that's the start of it all.
I'm always amazed because there are a lot of stories about immensely creative, talented people who later become famous. And they somehow come together at a very early age, either through elementary school or high school, or even maybe just bonding in a neighborhood. What was it that what was the attraction between you and Clive? Were you attracted to that oddness? And I mean that in the, you know, creative way. And
well, Clive was a very larger-than-life personality, as those of you who have listened to him at Q&As or spent time talking to him at his table, if you've been lucky enough to meet him at a convention, or you've seen or read interviews with him. You know how Clive flies, and his mind is all over the place all the time, and he touches on anything and everything. And he was a very flamboyant figure at Quarry, which was when I started at Quarry Bank, which was 1966. I mean, it was almost run like an old-fashioned English public school, and Clive did not fit in that milieu at all. But I think he's always reveled in being in a place where he doesn't belong, so he can kick up a rumpus, create a fuss, and kick doors and walls down, and say, you know, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, watch me. But he's a very good actor, which people may not know about him, but also, you know, everybody thinks Clive Barker, he's weird, he has a strange mind, he has a wild imagination, all of which is true, but he's very, very funny. He's he's devastatingly witty. Loves comedy, and the more ridiculous and absurd it is, the more he loves it. So it was just being drawn towards his personality, and as I say, it was a group of us who'd constellated around him. And as I said also, that he was putting on his own plays at school. When he would, again, this is Mr. Pobjoy, gave him permission to take over the school hall for a week to put his plays on. And Clive had this great idea of putting the performers in the body of the hall and putting the audience on the stage. So it's like, this is the stage and the audience are up here, and all of that space is the school hall. Wow. That's our acting area. So I got drawn into doing some of that stuff with Clive. Was I attracted to the weird stuff? Yes, that was always there in me. But that wouldn't have found a place to express itself. I don't, or not in that way. I don't think. Without that connection with Clive, acting was something I was always interested in, and it's possible. I don't know what my life would have been if that moment had never happened. You know, sliding doors. You never know that. But acting was always there, and it was always something I was interested in. So it may have been something I would have pursued.
Was there any particular person or event that pushed you in the direction of acting?
Well, as I said, in the early 1970s in Liverpool, we started doing our own experimental theatre, improvised stuff. We were a mime troupe for a while in the mid-70s, and then by degrees we moved down to London. We formed our own theatre company called the Dog Company, performing original plays by Clive, all of which now are published, so some of you guys may be familiar with them. But there was one in particular which I think is a brilliant play, for me Clive's best, called The History of the Devil. I see one nodding head, right? And I played the devil. And it's a brilliant conceit. It's very typically Clive. So very quickly the idea is that, of course, the devil was cast out of heaven and came down to earth, and he's been ruling on earth, and he's sick to death of it. He's sick to death of people, and the only thing he wants is to go back to heaven and be reunited with God. So a trial is called on the shores of Lake Turkana in Africa. And the devil wants to prove that all the things that he's been accused of, he's innocent of. And it wasn't him, it was humanity. And this is a familiar Clive idea. The monsters aren't the monsters, the people are the monsters. So this court is convened, which is an extraordinary court because it has the ability to call witnesses from the dead. So it's a kind of journey through the history of humanity from the moment the devil landed on earth right on through. So I was barely off stage, and I'm playing the devil in different incarnations, in different characters that he's assumed in different places at different times in history. He wins his case, he can go back to heaven, he goes up to heaven, and he immediately is back down again, screaming in pain and agony and loss, because God has long since given up on us and fucked off. So heaven is empty, is the conclusion of the play. And we were at the Edinburgh Festival, and being very successful too, I may say, performing The History of the Devil, and another show in which I played effectively Bugs Bunny, a short comedy that Clive had written called The Secret Life of Cartoons.
Oh, gosh.
Which we did as an after show after doing that.
Well, that's quite a transition.
Somewhere, well, but that was what we did. That was what we did, and that was what we were used to doing. It didn't seem unusual or remarkable to us to
pivot
to
like
shift
that.
Focus and change gear like that.
It's interesting that you...
Somewhere in that, at that point, I thought, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
And at that point, I could make the decision to stop and go to theatre school and have somebody teach me how they thought I should be doing it. But I also thought I've been doing this, for 10 years effectively. Yeah. And I've made my mistakes in public, and I've learned on the job, and you call it arrogance if you like, but I thought, I can do this as well as most and better than some. Yeah. Certainly not as well as others, but I think I'll give this a go. The theatre company came to an end in 1982. I got my equity card, and I was working as a jobbing actor in repertory theatre in England. At a party in 1985, Clive, in the middle of a conversation about something else, said, "Oh, by the way, I'm trying to put together an independent, low-budget British horror movie, and I think there might be a part in there for you. A year later, the cameras were turning on Hellraiser. Yeah.
I find it interesting that in the play you played the devil, and then later you played Pinhead, who is a prince of hell. So that's typecasting, or?
Not for me to say.
Okay.
You're never far away from that territory if you're going to work. If you're going to work with Clive, you know what I mean.
Were you always the first choice to play Pinhead?
As far as I know, yes.
So how did Clive approach you with the offer?
You see, my memory is that just during that initial conversation having taken place, that was it. Now, at some point in there, I would have read The Hellbound Heart, possibly in a pre-publication manuscript, so I'd be aware of the story. And I know during 1986, I had a lot of conversations with Clive about the character and who he was, and what he was.
Yeah.
So there was, as far as I'm okay, just because we're talking about the devil, like,
I know.
Fucker's crawling around my microphone.
That's the first fly I've seen in here today, so I don't know what that means.
Hello. It's gone. Weird.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of the Amityville horror at all. Where were we?
Well, you were talking about getting the role, and you
It's
had
back.
no, it's with me, talking to Clive about
Yeah.
the role.
Yes, and then Chris Figg, who's the producer, called me and said, well, it's time for us to talk turkey about this.
I've heard that you thought originally that he was going to be a minor character in the film.
Right, okay. I thought you were going to ask me a different
Uh-oh,
which
maybe I should ask you the one you're
playing me.
thinking of.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I'm fed up answering that one.
Okay.
No, it was always, that was always there. I think he's on screen for less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was my first movie. I'm buried in latex, playing a character without a name, and being paid union minimum rates for the privilege. If I'd been paid any less, I think I would have been officially an extra.
Oh, wow.
So what did I have to get excited about?
And yet, your performance in that film made an immediate impact. Were you surprised by the reaction that Pinhead got after the film?
I didn't know the reaction.
Really? How come?
Because, well, Clive's focus was not on the Cenobites. Clive's focus was on Julia. Clive's whole thing with Hellraiser was that he was creating the first great female monster in horror films, in Julia. And I honestly think he's always been a little bit pissed off that his side blow creations snuck past Julia and said, excuse me, this little film of yours, Mr. Barker, I think we'll own it for you, if you don't mind. And I know I talked to fans who were particularly in this country when the movie was coming out, and they said, you know, what was weird was all the interviews, you know, people who were on Good Morning America and so forth or whatever. It was Ashley Lawrence, it was Andy Robertson, and I think they may have brought Claire Higgins over from, who played Julia, over from the UK. So they said the interviews were always with them, and every time they showed a clip during the interview, it was you guys.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back to the studio to talk to them, but all the time we were thinking, well, this is fine, but who the fuck are they? and we never got the answers.
Yeah.
And I didn't do a single interview after Hellraiser was released. And although, like, Time Out London had Pinhead bang full face on the cover, which I kept and still have, I was not credited.
Wow.
And there were lots of reviews and articles, almost all of which had an image of Pinhead attached to them, none of which I was credited for. So I was a bit like Karloff the Uncanny, question mark.
See?
The monster, question mark.
You are compared to Karloff.
And I had no concept of fan world. I didn't know anything about. I'm not even sure it existed necessarily. Not to the extent it does now. That changed after Hellbound, because then I did start to do interviews. Fangoria did what was really my first full-length interview, and then Tony Timpone called me and said, "We'd like you to come to Fangoria Weekend of Horrors in LA, April 1989, my first visit to this country and my first convention, 36 years ago."
Wow.
And Tony Randall, who directed Hellbound, had called me at the hotel and said, "Look, your first morning in America, I'm taking you to Beverly Hills for breakfast." So, okay, so he came and got me, and we did that, and we came back to the hotel, and there's a line wrapping out of the hotel and around, and as we were walking in, I could see people doing that.
Yeah.
I thought they were I thought they were recognizing
Tony.
I'm no Barack Obama.
You're witnessing a Pinhead kill here.
No, I missed. I thought they were recognizing Tony because, I'm in LA and he's a director, right?
Yeah.
So they know who he is. But I said to Tony, I'm going to just run up to my room and I'll meet you back down here in 5, let's go. And I had no idea what a convention was. I thought it was going to be, professors and learned people delivering, recondite speeches about horror. I had no clue at all. Let's go and find out what all this is about. It took me about 20 minutes to get to the elevator. And that was my first experience of Mr. Bradley, could I take a picture with that? So after that weekend, I had no doubt what was going on, but I didn't see it coming, and I didn't know it was happening.
Yeah. I recently went to see Hellraiser on the big screen. It was a phantom event.
Yeah, just
I think
suddenly arbitrarily got re-released, which was.
But it was a treat to see it on the big screen again. And one of the things that impressed me about it was how well it holds up. It never really betrays its low budget, and the budget for 1987 was, I think, between $2 and $3 million or something like that. Well, it was a much lower budget than I thought it was, because the film is so well directed and the cinematography is so good. The music is incredible. We were playing the music before you came on, just because I think that is probably the greatest marriage between the theme of the movie and the music that I've ever heard in horror. And I've been a horror fan, like 70 years. So I mean, it's like a long time.
Well, and there was a band called Coil who made remarkable, very kind of visceral synth sound, which Clive had heard and really liked and wanted to use on Hellraiser. And to your point, if he had, it would have worked, but if he had, it would absolutely date the film. Because the music absolutely belongs to its time.
It does.
And Chris Young's score, which I agree with you, I think it's accuse me of being biased, but I think it is one of the great horror scores, without
absolutely,
question.
without
And
a doubt.
he outdid himself on Hellbound.
Yes.
The Hellbound score is even better.
Yes.
It lifts the film to to another level.
Like an epic, almost like an epic.
Absolutely,
level.
and it stops it dating.
Right.
And the other thing that stops it dating is the Cenobites. I've always said you could show the Cenobites to a 14th century monk and he would know exactly what he was looking at.
Yeah.
And if we're all still here, and it's looking increasingly unlikely, in a few hundred years' time, people will still go, oh, those guys. And there's Claire's hair and earrings and shoulder pads that that remind us that we're in the late 80s, early 90s, but otherwise there's not much that dates, and also because Clive's vision and Clive's imagination doesn't date. It's not fixed in time. It's always bigger and greater than the milieu that he's operating in.
Yeah. Incredible writer. Bob Keane was the one who did the makeup, and his team. Did he base the look of Pinhead on your facial features at all, or did he just have this idea from the beginning, or did he say, okay, I'm going to look at Doug and I'm going to see what look is going to be the most effective with his particular
it kind of
physicality?
Works the other way around, and a combination of both. Clive was already showing me drawings of Pinhead. He knew exactly what Pinhead looked like. He had pretty much literally dreamt him up. So the appearance of Pinhead was already there.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff Portas, who part of Bob Keane's image animation team, who, working with Clive, designed and made and applied the Hellraiser movie, Hellraiser movie, the Pinhead makeup is what I'm trying to say. He has said that Clive had said to him that he wanted my features to come through the makeup. So there would be an element of that, I suppose. Sure. But I think also partly what Clive is doing there is what he also did with casting Oliver Smith to play skinned Frank, and also casting Nick and Simon as Chatterer and Butterball, and Grace in the first movie as the female Cenobite. Yeah. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to put extras, and much cheaper to put extras in those costumes and get a voiceover actor later to add it on. Ollie Smith was talking about this at a convention I did with him last weekend, that Clive had stipulated. They needed a very skinny guy, because you've got to be very skinny to be able to get inside a full body suit and look like you're skinned. But Clive was adamant that it must be an actor, not, to go to Uglies or whatever. Yeah. Kind of, one of those modeling agencies that specializes in weirdly sized and shaped people. No, he was not interested in that. He wanted a very thin actor. Somebody who could convey. And he wanted actors inside the Cenobite makeups who could flesh out, so to speak, those characters and give them a sense of reality. The first stage for me was going to have a life cast taken, and then the makeup is modeled on the life cast. So, unless you've dramatically gained or lost weight in the meantime, that makeup is going to precisely fit your face, and strictly speaking, only your face. Are the pins part of a solid piece, or they actually have to be applied individually? A bit of both. In the first two movies, there was a kind of metal base in the foam latex. So it's foam latex pieces that are glued to my head. You start with a bald cap. I had a lot of hair. In 1986, a lot of jet black long hair, all of which gets pushed up inside the bald cap and comes which is like a swimming cap, and that gets glued on first. And then you start applying, it was a 6-piece application in the first 2 movies. There was a little circular metal base which had a little, as it were, a little half a pin sticking out of it. And then they'd made false nails, which was kind of like very, very, very fine stair rod, metal with a hollow inside it, and then they soldered a nail head on top of that.
Okay.
That slipped onto the metal bit and glued onto it.
Wow.
So all the basic bit of the pins went on with the foam latex, and then all of the pins had to be added individually.
Yeah.
Hellraiser 3 onwards, they were modified Q-tips and super glue. So it's a painstaking process, and I don't, the nails didn't make life easy for anybody. When we screen tested the makeup, it was pins.
Wow.
It was pins. There were 2 decisions at the screen test. Clive was delighted by everything, but the problem was that if the camera was close to me, the pins looked great. If the camera went any distance away, I just looked bald. They didn't read at all. Wow. You couldn't see them. So that's why they became really nails, not pins, was to make them chunkier and read from a distance. And the second thing, he thought the makeup was great, but that my baby blues were kind of undercutting the severity of the dark Pope of Hell. So in went the black contact lenses.
I read the story about the rap party talking about the makeup, where you were totally ignored by the rest of the cast and crew, and you thought...
Not the cast.
Oh, not the cast.
The cast knew who I was, but...
Okay.
But no, I'm I've spent weeks hanging out on set with members of the crew, and I've sat around, talking about football, and when I say football, I mean actual football. I want to start a campaign to have American football rebranded as throwball, so we can have football back, because we actually use our feet, you see, to play football, soccer, and generally the price of fish and whatnot. And I'm seeing guys from the crew, and I'm going up to say hi to them, and they're walking straight past me. And initially I was thinking, fuck, wow, I thought we were getting on okay, And then it occurred to me that they had no idea who I was, because they had never seen me out of my makeup. They only knew me as Pinhead.
It's amazing.
I had no other existence.
I want to ask you one. I'm going to open it up to questions. I want to ask you one more quick question, because I recently read the Scarlet Gospels, which combines the story of Clive's supernatural detective / fixer Harry D'Amour and meets Pinhead in hell.
Yes.
Is there any chance that you would reprise the role if that were to come to be developed into a film?
Let me preface this answer by saying that I have absolutely no reason to suppose that it's going to happen or is likely to happen. But what I have said is that if I could wave a magic wand before I get much older, it would be to make a movie of the Scarlet Gospels happen. And it's also partly because because it's a very different Pinhead that Clive has presented in the Scarlet Gospels. He's not calling him Pinhead. He's bestowed the name the Hell Priest on him, which has caught on very quickly. He's still, in my mind, doesn't have a name. Hell Priest will do as a description: Dark Pope of Hell, Prince of Pain, whatever, whatever. It would be a perfect bookend to my life in latex, so to speak, if that were to happen. And but I was in my early 30s when I wore the makeup for the first time, and I've always said that I think, to a large extent, special effects makeup is a young man's game. I ain't in my early 30s anymore. I will be 71 in September, and time and gravity has done to me what time and gravity will do to everybody, sadly, but there it is. I had a conversation with Clive at one point when Hellraiser remake was rearing its head and it looked like it might happen. And I sat with him in his house in LA, and we talked about this, and he said, well, look, I think this may be happening. And I've told them I will write it. But I've told them that, in my opinion, they would be out of their minds to consider doing this without you. But he said everything that I've just said, and I agreed with him. He said, so I have said to them, we should explore a different Pinhead, not retread what we've already done, because we can't, because you're not that Doug Bradley anymore.
Well, and Pinhead is actually in hell for the
what Clive was saying was, let's look at an older. Let's not try and pretend that Pinhead isn't aging.
Right.
Let's look at that. Let's look at an older, darker, tireder, bitterer Pinhead. One who's maybe not so keen on the nice one-liners. Not so enamored of his own ability to be darkly witty, which he is. He's a show-off. He's a showman. Aren't I a clever bastard? Remember when what was his name? Nigel. I can't remember his last name. Was the English guy with the bad teeth was going to buy the drunken clam in Family Guy. Remember that? Yes. And he had this great line where he said, being English, he said, "We will defeat you with our superior linguistic skills." And there's an element of that with Pinhead. All his no tears, please, it's a waste of good suffering, and your suffering will be legendary, even in hell, my dear. There's a lot of that about him. Yeah. He's a bit camp, which is fine. You know, some of my best friends are. But let's jettison all that and let's go to a darker place. And I was kind of going, wow, fuck, yeah, absolutely.
And
let's do that.
That would make a magnificent
I don't know
film.
whether Bob Weinstein would have bought it, but that was what Clive was talking about. And then everything went quiet. Yeah. This kept happening. There kept being a remake's going to happen. Oh, no, it's probably not. Oh, wait, the remake is going to happen. No, probably not. Clive will write it. No, he won't. He might direct, he won't. That kept happening.
I certainly hope that we're going to see the Scarlet Gospels with you in it at some point.
It would need it. I mean, he's blown everything so far wide open. Another point about Hellraiser was it didn't take place in a hell that belongs in Christian theology, and that was always felt like a very deliberate decision by Clive, and I felt very much at ease with it. And then Clive, it's typical of him, he rolls up with the Scarlet Gospels, and it's absolutely, it's theology on it, it's cosmically theological. It's Lucifer, and it's heaven, and it's and all of that.
Hell is this world that is almost Earth-like.
Pinhead wearing Lucifer's armor, and all of that,
Right.
So, fantastic stuff. But it's going to need a budget.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
Yeah, I would think so too.
I would have thought. So I don't know.
Well, I hope it happens.
A couple of $100 million and Guillermo del Toro to direct it.
There you go. That would be perfect.
I'd be on board.
Unfortunately, we've reached the end of
But I have no reason to suppose it's going to happen. So don't start an internet rumor that it is, because it probably isn't. Okay.
Well, we're going to hope that it does. So sadly, we've come to the end of our time, and I was originally going to have some questions, but I think we're out of time for those.
Oh, throw in a
unfortunately.
couple. Go
No,
on.
it
Go
was
on.
a great.
Well,
What I'm going to do is encourage everyone to go by Doug's table. And if you have a question for him, I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer it. And go by and, just talk to him, no?
Well, I think you should come with me and answer the questions on my behalf.
Only if you'll admit that my comparison with Karloff and Lugosi was valid. And nobody's done a better, let's admit it, nobody's done a better job of creating a role and making an impact in a first film with, like he said, only 10 minutes of screen time than our guest right here. I mean, he was talking about playing Bugs Bunny. He was featured in a Daffy Duck cartoon, Quackbusters.
There you go. Yes. All right.
Doug, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.